What is up, guys? So listen, I want to introduce this video because I think it was pretty awesome that Rus Snyder took the time to fully walk us through how he was able to successfully top the leaderboard in the kayak bass fishing Dee Zee, the 10 from Kissimmee, Florida this year. And man, listen guys, I normally do an intro to the videos and then I come back at the end and kind of tell you what my thoughts are. Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button now because you're gonna love this video. Leave a comment at the end. Give Rus some encouragement and a big shot in the arm and a pat on the back for what he's accomplished. Guy went on to win a Hobie event after that, placed in the top 10 for the Bass Nation Kayak Series. Just a great angler, but an even better human being. Anyway, without further ado, this is Rus Snyder taking you through the whole process of how he won the kayak bass fishing Dee Zee, the 10. Oh yeah. This is my kayak. Get yourself one. Fish on. Yeah. Oh my God. Look at that tank. That's a toad, brother. Golly. This is really the essence of what kayak fishing's all about.
Whenever I have a tournament coming up, starting about a couple weeks before is where I'll really dive into the research. The main tools I'm using are Google Earth, and then I'll also do a lot of research as far as YouTube videos and records of past tournaments and different articles and stuff like that. But as far as finding locations to check out, the first thing I'll do is go onto Google Maps and find the tournament boundaries where we're allowed to fish and just scan all of it. And I'll put a waypoint on any of the boat ramp or access that I think may be available. Some areas you can't really tell if it's public access, so I'll just put access and a question mark so I know at least to go and check it out. I might not be able to count on it. And then once I've marked all the waypoints for access, I'll always also leave waypoints on different areas that could have potential to use as a spot in the tournament. When you're fishing vegetation lakes, anything with grass or lily pads, any of that stuff, the one thing about checking it out on a satellite image is it might not always look exactly like it is currently. Wind shifts a lot of this vegetation, or certain years, certain grasses will grow better than others. And it's the one thing about satellite image is you can't always count on it on these grass lakes. It'll give you somewhat of an idea, but really you got to check it out firsthand and see what it looks like. When I'm pre-fishing, a lot of times I'll give myself about 3 days. I'll hit up to, I'd say 3 ramps is probably the most I've done in a day. Sometimes I'll just go to one ramp and trying to cover as much water as I can until I find an area that I think has potential, and then I'll slow down and pick it apart a little better. And sometimes, I'll find a good spot that I like the first day pre-fishing, and I'll hit it again right before the tournament just to either expand on what I've found or just get a little bit more detailed so I know where some of these sweet spots are going to be, or just get a better idea of the layout of everything. The one thing I really pay attention to is finding an area that has multiple places or different types of structure, things to fall back on, kind of like this spot here where we got the lily pads, we got the little backwater kind of protected area behind the reeds, as well as a small creek coming in that has a bunch of duckweed and matted vegetation. So if one thing isn't working, you have other things to fall back on, other patterns to try, other lures to try. And that's always a smart thing to do, especially when you're kayak fishing, as opposed to a boat where it's easy to run from one end of the lake to the other. Maybe you don't need to look for areas like that. But for kayak fishing tournaments, you need to have multiple types of structure and areas to fish, all within, a close distance to travel to. Whenever you're fishing a tournament, especially multiple day events, you got to count on having weather changes, whether it's wind direction, sun, clouds, and this is going to impact the fish. They're going to change their location, based on those things, whether the sun's out or clouds are out or the wind's blowing. And having an area, to fish your tournament that has a variety of different types of structure and cover. So if one technique or area isn't working, you can move to something else and try a different technique or way of catching a fish.
All right, so we made it back into the thick stuff where Russ has been fishing, and the first thing I noticed is that out on the main lake it's real muddy. The wind's blown up a lot of the silt that's on the bottom, made it real muddy. Florida bass don't like muddy water, but as soon as you get to the other side of these lily pads and these reeds, the water clears up. And what that does is that all the fish in this area will concentrate down to this clear water. And so no wonder he smashed them this morning.
So what I've been doing is just tucking back behind these reeds, protected from the wind. The water's really shallow here. It's only 6 inches to a foot. I'm just creeping along really stealthy, trying not to make a lot of noise. And I'm casting. There's a lot of good targets to hit here. These little isolated patches of lily pads is where they've been tucked up and hiding. And some of those lily pads, they're actually spawning on as well. What I'm doing is casting a super fluke, just weightless. And I'm giving it a few twitches and then just letting it sink. And a lot of times they're doing, one of two things. Either right when it hits the water, I make a couple twitches, you'll see it just a V line straight for it and they'll just crush it. And then a lot of times they'll just pick it up after it's a couple twitches and it just hits the bottom and I just let it sit there and all of a sudden the line will just start moving. Once I find an area that has them, I'll just try to sit in one place so I'm not moving around a lot. They can't really feel my presence and I'll just make several casts, kind of fan casting the area, just picking it apart to make sure I've hit every little ambush point that they could be hiding under.
All right, so something I want you to notice about his technique. It's not just what he's throwing and where he's throwing it, it's how he's picking the area apart. One little bit at a time. It's amazing. I tell you, being as stealthy as he's being is the essence of kayak bass fishing. That is how you win a tournament in a kayak.
A lot of times what I really want to do here is to kind of pick it apart, is to find a little spot to tuck up in and then make some casts and then go to the area where you made those casts already, like I just did. Now I know there's no fish right here, and then kind of hit some of the new stuff from different angles. I was sitting right over there casting this whole area. I spooked that fish. And then I came over here, I knew that fish was there, I knew he was gonna go back to his little spot, so I just kept casting all of this, let that fish, kind of settle down, think everything was all right, and picked him off. He's the little guy. I think we gotta go do a couple more casts with the Senko. I think the better, smarter thing to do right now is to be punching this heavier stuff. So with the clear skies now, I think a lot of these fish are hunkering down in this thick, heavy cover. And the way to fish for those is to punch for them. And what that consists of is a bobber stop, heavy 1 ounce or 1 1/4 ounce tungsten weight. I've got a punch skirt, flipping hook, and a small creature bait. And you slide that bobber stop down, it stays nice and compact, and you're able to cast it in here and it'll punch right through the stuff. If it doesn't, sometimes you have to sit and shake it. There you go, and now it sinks through. So the key, is just to have the lightest weight possible that can still get through the stuff. So if it gets really thick, you're gonna wanna switch over to like, 1 ounce and 1/4. If I cast way up in here, I'm shaking it, I can't get through, I need a heavier weight. But if you use too heavy of a weight, it falls too fast, and then they might not want to bite it either. So when you're flipping, first of all, you need a really heavy, stiff rod to be able to pull them out of the cover. At the same time, you do want something with a little bit of a tip, just so you have better accuracy on your casting. What I'm using is a iRod Air Series. It's a 775. This here was specially designed for flipping. It's got just the right length handle where it tucks right up against your elbow right there. I have 65-pound braid. Because the water is clear, I'm putting a 25-pound test fluorocarbon leader on here as well. And always want to use a high-speed reel just to be able to pick up that slack in case they come running at you. A lot of times I'll get the bite initially on the fall. When I'm practicing, I'll make sure to leave it in there extra long. And then if I do get bit like that, then I know, okay, then they just want to have it sitting there for a little while. I'd say 75% of the time, they're going to either hit it on the fall or the first pop. There are times though, you know, like I said, it's worth shaking it around in there. Another thing that you can do is when you flip it in, you know, you let it sink to the bottom. I'll pop it maybe 1 or 2 times, but a lot of times reeling it up to the top of the mat and just shaking it right there. It looks like it's something coming up from the bottom and it's trying to work its way through the mat. And it's a perfect, you know, perfect place for a bass just to pick off an easy meal because it's pinned up right against the top of that mat right there. Fish are finicky today. I have to go out to the pads. They might have all left the creek maybe, who knows?
All right, so about halfway through the day, the clouds went away. It got really, really sunny. And a lot of these bass will push up into shady areas to hide, to get ready to ambush their prey. Their prey goes into the shady areas, so they follow. There's lots of different reasons, but typically on sunny days or when the sun comes out, within an hour or two, you'll find the bass all in the shady areas. These lily pads are ideal for that.
Those fish that were up shallow, I had a feeling they were gonna back out a bit. So we came out here to these pads. But the thing about fishing these pads, it's like finding a needle in a haystack because there's just so much water out here. Good one. But once you find them, you know, just hunker down and there's probably more close by. So it's a good one here. It's definitely gonna help. All right, so when I'm measuring fish, I always want the head of the board here angled downwards into just into the crack of the boat right there, and I'll lean it up like this and support it either with this piece or my foot. And I have my camera right here close by in a waterproof case, so I can just unlock it real easy. Always close it back up. I don't want to lose my keys in my wallet. I got a tether on my phone just to be safe. I'll always turn on my phone first and get to the camera setting and get everything completely good to go. Make sure it's on photo. I'll lay the fish on the hog trough. I'll usually hold the tail down with this end. Lately they've been trying to open their mouths, so the hardest part is just getting their mouths shut. There, come on. Yep, now I got it. Get it on the hog trough and get a picture as quick as you can, because you never know when they're just gonna fly off the thing. This one will go 19 and a half. 19 and a half. He's fat though, he looks bigger. He's got a big belly on him.
Oh, no.
I don't know if it was a big one, but it absolutely clobbered it. Shoot.
Oh, look at that one.
He's caught in the pads.
Oh, go get him.
Oh no. Oh, come on. I hope he's still on there.
Don't break your rod.
I didn't feel him at first, and he ran out to the side, and that's the thing with these pads. If you don't get them right away and they have a chance to run off to the side, they just get wrapped up in all these pad stems, and 50% of the time you're gonna end up losing them because they just use the pad stems as leverage, shake their head, that hole rips big enough, and they end up coming off.
Oh, he's got it. Got him?
Yeah, he's got me wrapped up. I feel him though.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Oh man, had to go in and get that one.
Oh, that was awesome.
Woo!
So is that gonna help you any?
I mean, it should. At least a few inches, I think.
So I'm sitting here watching Russ catch fish after fishing these pads. I decided to pull my rod out and try a little bit and experience much of the same difficulty of getting a fish out of the water. Well, I'm fishing 17-pound test fluorocarbon. This is Seagar Braze X is what it is, and so I don't want to, what I'm trying not to do is get the hook all the way to the lily pad that he's wrapped up in, because once you do that, he's able to gain leverage and pull that hook or push that hook out. So the trick is to get up to him and then go down in there and get him. But I let him sit on the hook too long. So he's probably wrapped several times around these lily pads. He's probably off is what he probably is. But we're gonna see. And fat guy can't get down like these little kids can. Come on, let's see if he's on it. And the same, yep, there he is. Just like that. You just take your time with them. Let them fight themselves out without getting the hook up against the lily pads, and a lot of times you can get them. Sweet, we'll let him go. I wore him out.
One of the advantages of kayak fishing as opposed to fishing out of a boat is you can have that stealthy approach. If you tried to come up here in a big boat and fish this, you're gonna get outfished by a kayak 3-to-1. Giant!
Giant, big one, really big one. Get him, boy!
Yeah!
Oh my gosh. Big head.
Look at that humpback on that thing. Barely had him hooked. He's got a big head on that thing. It's not very long. I mean, look at the size of that head and his gills and his mouth, everything. It's just a short, fat fish. Like 1/3 of it is head and 2/3 body. I'll take it though. That fish just absolutely crushed this thing. As soon as it hit the water, it took it and ran right at me. By the time I set the hook, it was already this far. They're not biting it and just sitting in one place. They're taking it and running, which makes it difficult in these pads.
One of the universal truths in fishing is that confidence matters. Confidence is probably more important than anything else, especially when it comes to moving into a tournament where you're fishing against some of the other best anglers in the world. And it's no accident that for 3 years in a row, the Kayak Bass Fishing Angler of the Year has gone on to win the title of Kayak Bass Fishing Dee Zee the 10 champion, because those guys have momentum. Momentum leads to confidence, and confidence leads to catches. So congratulations to Rus Snyders, the 2019 Kayak Bass Fishing Angler of the Year, and for the 3rd time in a row, the Angler of the Year has taken home the title of the Kayak Bass Fishing Dee Zee the 10 champion.